Welcome to ABC Behavior Training, where we're disseminating the science of ABA to everyday behavior analysts through resources, education, and supervision. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at abcbehaviortx.com. Welcome to this week's podcast, our first podcast of the month for our topic on supervision of BCBA trainees. This month is all about supervision, and every podcast and webinar will be for Supervision CEU'S. And if you are a pro-level member of the Behavior Crew with complete access to all of our resources, you're set up to earn over 3 CEU'S of Supervision CEU'S this month. If you're not yet a member, go to abcbehaviortx.com right now, click on Join the Crew, and sign up. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Amanda Coffey, the owner of the Behavior Network, an ABA clinic just north of Dallas, Texas. But as you'll soon hear, the Behavior Network is much more than your typical ABA clinic. Dr. Amanda Coffey earned her master's degree in neuroscience from the University of Texas at Dallas, where she completed an internship at UT Southwestern Center for Brain Health. She then proceeded to earn her doctoral degree under the advisement of Dr. Michael Dorsey at Endicott College, focusing her research on the assessment and treatment of severe problem behaviors. She collaborates also with a local nonprofit, IDD Authority, to secure grants, funding, and support for these families to access quality, comprehensive behavior analytic services. I have been following the Behavior Network for many years. I've been to their clinic on several occasions, and I am continually impressed with the high-quality work that they are doing. As a BCBA in the Dallas area, let me tell you that this clinic is a huge resource and one of the very few places I know that I can send severe cases to. So let's get started with our interview. Dr. Coffey, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about this very important topic of supervision. Before we get into the details of your supervision program, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into ABA.
Honestly, I kind of stumbled into it. I was doing pre-med, and then I took a couple of classes over at UT or University of North Texas, and really enjoyed the classes. They made sense to me. And then I did I worked in the field as a direct therapist. And when I decided to keep going further, it was my experience in the field. It was the lack of some of the ethical practices and also just the inconsistencies. And I wanted to be able to do better. I wanted to be able to do it how I was being taught and the things that I was learning. And so for myself specifically, I just decided to keep going and get more information. And, I ended up getting into the graduate program over at University of North Texas, but I ended up leaving because I felt like I had received such a strong foundation in the undergrad program, and I was really interested in neuroscience. And so I, left and went to University of Texas at Dallas and did my master's in neuroscience, and then finished up the coursework to be able to sit for my BCBA through the UNT online program. And then worked in the field as a BCBA. I worked in traumatic brain injury for a few years. And then I decided and that's where I really learned about treatment of severe behavior. Because with brain injury, a lot of times those are the types of behaviors that you're working with. And so that really piqued my interest. And then I found kind of a niche in the autism world just through some friends of ours. And so then I became even more interested in specifically treating severe behavior, and went on to do my PhD at Endicott under Michael Dorsey.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then that just kind of when I met, Dr. Jessel and that whole crew, and learning ISCA and FAs. And so it's just, I've had a really strong support and training system and supervision. And so what we've done here at Behavior Network is that is why we do the we're more specialized in treatment of those severe behaviors.
I think that's amazing because it's so needed. And I mean, I've even been at some places where, okay, the behaviors are too severe, we have to refer out. So that's great that there's that resource there. And as a side note, which I'm sure but that's kind of why I like found you and started
Mhm.
following you, because I was like, wow, you have like the same background, like kind of leading up to becoming a BCBA, the degree in neuroscience, and then transferring over to that. So I think that's also kind of helpful to have that wider range of kind of where you're coming from to treat these behaviors. So we'll talk about your clinic and the different things you do there in just a little bit, but kind of going to the supervision. So you guys, this summer it was, right? Pretty
Yes.
recently, got the BHCOE accreditation for being a training site. And I know there's not a ton of those around. So could you tell me a little bit more about that and kind of how that came about?
Yeah, I mean, it was something new with the BHCOE. We were the first to get done in our area. And I think in Texas, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what she was saying. And so we decided to go ahead and do it because after speaking with their group, we were already doing a lot of the things. And so it was just really kind of nailing down some of the policies and procedures, and I guess making them more official, if you would. And so it wasn't, honestly, to get that accreditation, it was a lot of paperwork, but it was actually really nice to have that third party review our processes and procedures and say, yeah, you're doing what this, what it should look. This is the standard. So that was really good. And that's why I like going through those accreditations, because sometimes it's nice just to have another person to say, you're going down the right track, or what
Yeah.
you're doing is right, because you really don't have that in the field. And especially when you are one of the only clinics that, that provides the services that we do. So with the training piece of it, it was, a lot of it is just making sure it's the content, making sure that you're hitting all of the things that you're supposed to be hitting per, the guidelines and the standards. But outside of that, it's having the oversight. It's making sure that whenever you're doing supervision, that you're not just signing off, that you're doing people's hours, that you're actually doing them. That it's also not that you're just taking, the white book, I guess. I don't know if that's,
Yeah.
I always call it the white, that you're,
Same here. They
yeah,
better
so
not
that you're
ever
just,
change the color of that
no,
book.
and making sure that that's not what you're doing in your supervision. Like, you really need to talk about the application and the things that they've learned within their coursework, which we have found when people do come in, that's a lot of times they don't know how to write a program, or they don't know why they're writing a program, or the assessments. I know that when I came out, I had very good supervision, from a graduate from the North Texas program. And every time we met, she signed off, like every hour was accounted for. And so I think it's just that accountability and making sure that we are doing what we are supposed to be doing in the field to then be able to produce great clinicians.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, for us, it wasn't really anything outside of what we weren't doing, and that's why we went for the accreditation, and we were able to get it.
That's amazing to know that you are doing the right things. Like, it's not like you had to go and do a whole bunch of different stuff in order to get it. You were just
Right.
already doing that. So let's talk a little bit kind of about your supervision process and kind of how that works, kind of coming at it from, maybe people that haven't had that really good experience,
Mhm.
or that, they don't really know where to start with kind of implementing something like that. How does that process kind of start out for your technicians? Do you have like an application process for people that are able to get supervised, or do you provide it to all staff members that want it?
It is a process. We, in there over the years, the directors here, they were under my supervision. I had one at a time. And I've always kept it that way. I would not supervise more than one person at a time. And then they became BCBAs, and we didn't do any hours for a while until they felt, it was a couple of years before they felt like they were able to do that supervision. And then again, then they were able to choose who they were going to supervise, and then I would help as well. So it is a process, because at this point in time, I only have myself and then 2 other BCBAs that are technically allowed to supervise underneath my company. What they do on their own time is up to them, which they're not supervising. But if it is going to go through Behavior Network, there's only 3 of us that are approved to do supervision. And so I think, the process, a lot of people get into the grad program. What we had found in the past is we would go ahead and let them kind of start dipping their toe in it, giving them supervision, but then sometimes they wouldn't finish. Sometimes it would take longer. Sometimes they would just leave. And I think from a business standpoint, there's a lot of, because it is non-billable time, there's a lot of effort on the company's position to grow a BCBA, if you will. And so we kind of pulled it back a little bit to what we were doing before, because we got a little, we were allowing more people to do that, but then we pulled it back. And so we have, after the accreditation piece of it, we did kind of fine tune some of the requirement, and it is a process. It is an interview process. I have several individuals here that work here that are in graduate school. And what we've now started doing is they submit, because of all the different programs and length of time and content that's being done, and just like the order that it's done, they submit their syllabus, their anticipated graduation date, which program that they're in. And then we sit down and interview. And so for each of, it's not really just, you can start whenever you're getting hours when you're in school. We look at the program to see what makes sense. So whenever you are working on certain, are you doing assessments? What are, what part of the program are you in? This sounds like this would be a good time for you to start your hours, versus it being just kind of a one size fits all. So we meet individually with each person, and then we come up with a plan. So that plan will say, this is when you'll start, this is what we'll do here, and then this is when you'll be finished. And then you will go into an intern position to where you will be under the BCBA and learn those programming and stuff like that. So you're in the schedule, you're working as a frontline therapist. Then we have a lead position. So if we have additional staff, we pull the leads out, and then they can help do like our data, like our binders, making sure that the data is correct and stuff like that. Just, hey, let's go do a TI check with this person, or we need to update a program, you want to sit and watch, those types of things. And then it kind of graduates once your coursework is done to then an intern position where you are out of the schedule and you start building up those hours. Again, it depends. Some people have been able to go like that last semester to really start doing those hours. But it's based on where they are and just their confidence and their comfort level, and how they're able to pick up the skill as we're teaching it. So we have a standard, but it also varies.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, because the process of just anybody on your staff gets supervision leads to overwhelmed BCBAs and not good supervision, and then not great new BCBAs. So I think starting honestly, like at that very first point of who do we start providing supervision to is really important. And then kind of what goes on like in your supervision as far as like the content and the things that you cover. I know you said it's like individualized, but like, do you guys utilize group supervision? Do you have them, what sorts of things do they kind of go and do, like beyond just the applied work? Do they have other things that you have them do?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, the group piece of it is going over like articles. Let's do this. I know right now we're looking at some of the newer Hanley, the Hanley research. And so it's, hey, go read into this. Taylor Bain, one of my supervisors, she's doing the CEU. She's going to come back and she's going to do a presentation and fill us in. We also wanted a little bit more information on ACT. She's going to do one of the workshops. And so it kind of just depends on what we have going on. And if we see something that's like super interesting, there's a couple of like insurance workshops on how, like what the insurance funders are looking for. we know how to do that. We write plans and we submit them every day, but things change. And so we, the senior staff will go to some of these workshops, and then we will present and give them that information. Outside of that, that's a big part of the group part of it. But outside of that, it is the treatment planning. Hey, what do you think about this program? Go write this up, bring it back. We love to sit there, and then we just edit it, send it back. And so you do it, we'll edit, but then you're still going to come back and try to get that finished product versus just doing it for them. So it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of editing. It is time consuming, but we feel like it's an important part of the process. And then again, like assessments, all of those hands-on, that's again, watching, doing. We have the opportunity for our clinic to be able, let's go do an FA. Well, we do them often. So those are things that they're able to really get their hands on. And I think, outside of that, that's just, they're really part of the process with their BCBA whenever they get to that point. To where when they're done and they've tested, they essentially can come out with a caseload.
Yeah. What sorts of outcomes do you see, like having done this? And, I'm sure a lot of them like stay with your company just with all the stuff that you guys offer. What sorts of outcomes do you see with like these new BCBAs coming through versus, maybe somebody who has kind of just went through the let's sign off on hours and get you through this type of supervision?
I don't know, like I keep my bubble pretty small, and I've grown all of my BCBAs. So my original 2 that I supervise are the director I have 2 directors. And that's why I have 2, because I supervise them at the same time. And so it's Maggie and Taylor. And then the other BCBAs below is the same thing. I've had 2 that had totally different degrees, finished their LPC. They were just here for a job and they went back and got another degree. And so they recently tested and they have their BCBA now. I've got, everybody here is just, they've been here for at least 5 years. I think the frontline staff, I know we had some numbers come out recently. It was like 70% had been here for at least 1 year.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so, and it's not until you get those numbers that you really realize that, because sometimes the day-to-day you feel like it's just a revolving door. But I know with some in the past, we've had some people come in, very few, because at the end of the day, like this is how I had set up. My clinic is small. I don't have multiple locations. So I set this program up with the intention of growing my own and not needing a lot of BCBAs. The ones that have come in from other places, honestly, they haven't, because I make them still go through the same process. Even if you come in with a cert, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are trained to our standard. So we have them start as an RBT and work through all of the process. So they haven't stuck around. And that's just, it's unfortunate, but, and then that's kind of just been what's happened.
Yeah. And you're making sure you're keeping your things consistent, but of course, other people don't necessarily always see that, depending on where they're coming from.
It's a different standard. Yeah. It's very rigorous. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of, we still collect data by paper and pencil. So it's very different when you come from a different place that they have iPads and they're like, oh, you have to write that. Yes. We don't have templates. Like it's just, it's different. And so I think if you don't have that training from the very beginning, you get into it and you're like, whoa, like this is a lot of work. And so I think it's just kind of maybe a shock. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break right here. I'll be back shortly with Dr. Amanda Coffey, the owner of the Behavior Network and first BHCOE accredited training site in Texas, but I just want to take a moment to check in with you before we move on. If you are a BCBA providing supervision to BCBA or BCABA supervisees, and you're listening to this interview thinking you might be missing some of these key components to high-quality supervision, or that you have all of the pieces in place, but are exhausted putting it all together for every single supervisee, then be sure to check out some of the supervision resources offered by ABC Behavior Training. We have the most in-depth supervision curriculum out there right now. It's sold as a 3-book set or as a web-based resource and includes everything you need to provide high-quality, effective supervision. There are 30 units which will cover the entire 5th edition task list and includes learning materials, comprehension assignments, along with correct answers and teaching tips, applied assignments to be conducted with their clients, which includes grading rubrics for a structured scoring criteria, 4 mini mock exams, supervisor and supervisee evaluations, competency assessments, and more. Not only will this curriculum give the supervisor all the tools they need to provide amazing supervision that will lead to competent and confident BCBAs entering our field while spending almost no time gathering materials and creating assessments, it will also help the supervisee increase their unrestricted hours through all of the client-based assignments. Honestly, this curriculum was created out of necessity on my end, as there was not a product out there like it when I started doing supervision, and I was tired of spending hours outside of all my other tasks to make sure I was providing the level of supervision that our trainees deserved. So I developed this curriculum over the course of 5 years while using it with supervisees from all over the world. Not only did this improve the quality of my supervision while saving me a bunch of time, over 90% of the supervisees that completed at least 3/4 of their supervision with my company using this curriculum passed the BCBA exam on their very first try. By creating a solid skill foundation during supervision, we are setting up our supervisees to pass the exam, enter the field with confidence and competence, and improve the quality of clinicians in our field as a whole. And if you are a supervisee looking for supervision, be sure to apply at abcbehaviortx.com/supervision to begin working with one of our experienced supervisors today. Now, let's get back to our interview with Dr. Amanda Coffey. So you were talking about a lot of the things you have your supervisors do or supervisees do, like helping with assessments and writing programs, and all of that stuff is so vital. But I know something that a lot of supervisees have issues with, and companies, I guess, in general, are those unrestricted activities for their supervisees, because so many companies are, well, that's not billable. So you have supervisees that are left not actually ever having hands-on experience with a lot of these things, and then going on to become BCBAs, and that's like the first time they're doing an assessment and stuff like that. How do you, which I mean, I figure it's you just got to do it. But like, how do you fit that into, your business, and also just kind of managing that with them?
I mean, we always joke around about it, but at the end of the day, yeah, we eat it. And that, again, that was the purpose of, creating Behavior Network. And we treat the most severe kids. We also treat adults, and it takes 2, 3, 5, 10 staff sometimes for one person. It's all non-billable. The programming, I could easily go get something that could be maybe more efficient and faster and save time, but you wouldn't have your hands on the data every single day. So it's that piece of the non-billable, to me, is worth it, because at the end of the, hopefully that they are going to stick around and they will become a BCBA, and then they'll bill for you later. So it's not, it's just part of the process. It's part of the package. But that's also why we're selective. And so we are going to give those opportunities to the people that we know that are going to stick around and really be part of the team. And that was also part of kind of tightening up that internship program. Because like I said, the last couple of years, we have been a little bit more flexible, and we did see that at the end of the day, it was a huge cost, that ended up not being, worth it. And so tightening it up, really focusing on who we're bringing in for the internship program. And it's part of the business model. So it definitely isn't the same structure as some of the other companies that have multiple clinics and they're worried about their bottom line. But again, that's just what we do here. So
yeah. and you're doing it and still
Yeah.
obviously remaining in business. So it definitely
Mhm.
can be done. Um, what kind of just like overall, like with the BACB, are there any things that you can think of that would be like a good procedural change or like process or policy change for the BACB that you think could help with the quality of supervision overall, like across our field? Just because I mean, I do so much supervision too, and that's one of my concerns and a thing I see. I'm
Mhm.
like, we keep having low quality supervision. We're going to have low quality BCBAs, and our field is just going to go
Yeah.
down. What's something that you would like to see done that you think could maybe improve that across our field?
I feel like I mean, I think there, and I know that I had heard, possibly putting a time limit on how long do you have to be a BCBA before you can actually supervise, and then maybe adding an additional accreditation or certification for being able to be a trainer, like the BHCOE doing the training side. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, that's the company, that's not the clinician. And so part of me feels like that could also be helpful, but then um, I don't know how, again, it's going to add another test that you have to take. And that's really not, indicative of your skill set. And so, there's that. And then I also feel like maybe adding in some specialty areas. Being a crisis center, I get so many, well, most of these kids have been in other places, and seeing the programming and just some of the things that were done, it's disheartening that, again, it's working within your scope. And so I feel like there should be some more restrictions and oversight on your scope of practice, specifically for treating severe behavior. But outside of that, I feel like there's a lot of conversation going on. I think we're moving in the right direction with some of those things. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your clinic too, and just kind of what that looks like and how you started it. This month I'm focusing on supervision, but I also get a lot of questions from BCBAs of, how do you start a clinic and how do you do this and that. And I mean, again, I've been to your clinic and I'm familiar with it. And I think you guys are just really super successful in all the different things you do. So tell me a little bit kind of how you started growing your clinic to become what it is today.
I mean, it was just something that I wanted to do, like I said, to provide a better service. And honestly, Behavior Network has been successful because of the people that I employed.
Mhm.
My core team, this Behavior Network would not be Behavior Network if I didn't have them. This is not just me. We do it as a group, and that's why we don't expand, because if you split the group up, it's not Behavior Network. And so I think that it's having a good core, having people that you can trust at the end of the day to do the right thing, having a group that can be collaborative and not get offended, or come in with I know everything, because that's not the way that you grow a clinic. And then just sticking to your core, like, I mean, your core values, your ethics, and making sure that everybody that is here, that's what they believe as well. Like that's Behavior Network. We're small, but we're fierce, and like I said, we've stuck together since the beginning. And I think, but running a clinic is hard. It is
Yeah.
very, very hard. I would have not believed anybody had they told me all of the things that we've had to go through and currently going through, which is the climate with staffing and everything else. It's definitely not easy. And I can see where it's very easy to maybe try to cut corners just to get things done. And at the end of the day, like, you can't. The insurance companies are a beating trying to continue. They just keep adding things that need to be done, but then you don't get extra hours to do them. So a lot of what you're doing is admin, and it's not billable. And so but you have to do those things. But that's my best advice is, you've got to have a team. You have to have a support system. my husband has always been a huge supporter. He's also a business partner, and he really knows the financial piece of things because that is not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
So I may be the clinician, but I have a strong counterpart who does financials. He knows how to do IT and all of those other fun building stuff and fixing things and contractors, because it's not just about knowing ABA going into having a clinic. It is HR, it's legalities. It's like there's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I think is unique kind of about what you guys have is the kind of the different areas that you serve. And I think it was a few years ago that I was there, but I know you had like a
Mhm.
preschool area, and then you even had like kind of like an education part for like high schoolers, and then you work with adults. What does that kind of look like as far as, the different populations that you serve and how you do that kind of all together?
So we started out with just the small clinic, and then as my supervisees had graduated, we would expand essentially so they would have a caseload. Maggie really loved ECI. That's her thing. And so we came over to McKinney, we expanded and did an early intervention program. And then Taylor Bain, we did transitions. And so we've just kind of done that as we've been able to just expand, interests, I guess. I've always been more of the treatment of severe behavior crisis center. So we've all kind of had our niches under one roof. And then we decided to go ahead and add an accreditation through TEA because we found that there was a huge need. Kids were coming out of school and not getting their educational needs met because the behaviors. So going and getting that accreditation with the school now allows a partnership with the school to where they can place the kid with us. We can provide that educational, the education because we're not under insurance anymore, and do the behavior programming. And so that's been huge to really be able to support our area for those needs. And then most recently, we added a residential program. So we have one house, it's on 2 acres, and we have 7 beds. And so if we have a kid, for example, we have a kiddo that's in Amarillo or Austin or that area, they can reside at the residence while they are in treatment with us through TEA. And so all of that's funded through the school districts. I feel like that program has probably been growing the fastest outside of the crisis center in itself. And I think it's a huge need. I was full within the first, I don't even know, months of even opening. And it's one of those things, once you have an opening, it fills quickly. I think the challenge right now for us is finding individuals once they are ready to move on in our, adult adolescent program. So we're trying to build relationships in the autism, like the adult world with like day habs and group homes and stuff like that, which has been a challenge, but it's something that we're still working on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely something that's needed and things that I don't see other places doing. So, just overall, like what are some of the, biggest challenges you've had as a clinic owner over the years and, growing everything?
I think it's a lot of it's the staffing. I think it's the larger companies coming in and buying up clinics, and then they're offering, $25, $30 an hour for a frontline therapist, benefits. And I mean, which we offer benefits, but it's like benefit, like completely paid, or it's just a lot to compete with, at the end of the day. And so, that's been hard from a staffing standpoint. I think that there have been a lot of staff that have left to go do those things who have then come back because they've been able to see the difference in the treatment that's provided. But I think that's been the hardest, the staffing. COVID was difficult. We did retain all of our employees. We had 75, I think, at that time. We didn't lay anybody off. They were paid for 6 weeks to be at home. And so we were able to do some of those things where the bigger companies didn't. They laid everybody off or they furloughed, and I can say we didn't. And so I think it's just competing with them. And then, which again, I don't consider it competing, but at the same time, you still have to, the staffing has been really difficult. Those frontline positions. Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest. And then the insurance, there's just been a lot, a lot of audits, a lot of trying to pull money back. And so in those audits, I mean, we've always been successful at all of them, but at the end of the day, they still take hours and hours and hours of time. And it's like they just keep layering more paperwork and more things and more hoops to jump through. Any way to get out of, paying for something. Authorizations are more difficult with older kids. So it is more time to do those authorizations, sometimes up to 10 hours just to write one, to pull all of the data, and then to fight, because they all go into peer review. So I'm on the phone with all of them, myself or Taylor or Maggie, and we have to peer review every single client that is in this building over the age of 15, probably. So it's a lot of hours of work just to be able to get an authorization. But I think that's for our clinic specifically, just because of the hours and the ages that we serve.
Yeah. What's some advice that you would offer somebody that is maybe just kind of starting out at the beginning of this process of wanting to open a clinic or do home health with ABA? What would you tell them besides save lots of money for all of this craziness or run?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, again, it's a system. It is not just about the clinical. It is the business side of it. And that is something that, you have to have somebody for that business piece of it. Go get your MBA first. I don't know. That's been a hard, and then also making sure that you really understand insurance. I have heard of other practitioners that have gone out, started billing, and then they come back and they pull back the money, and then they're bankrupt, because they didn't do things by the book. And if you don't read the fine print on those contracts, you will get yourself in trouble. And so I think there's been a lot of talk about the billing and fraudulent billing. You have to follow things by the book. You won't get away with it. I can promise you that. And that's just one thing. I have a biller who is very fluent. She's been with me since I started, and she still does my billing. She does my contract. She does my credentialing. It's been my only person that I've used. My business person's my husband, and then me as the clinician, and the three of us, being able to make sure that all of things are done the right way, and our business lawyers. So
yes,
you have to have a team. It's not just going in and starting services. If you want to get to the level of being in network with insurance companies and employing staff.
Yeah. Yes, it definitely seems like so much goes into it besides just I'm a BCBA and I'm great at this. Let's open a clinic. So yeah, absolutely. What has some of your biggest successes been, or like some of your biggest wins that you've experienced?
I mean, outside of the treatment part of it, because I could talk about that all day long.
Yeah, right.
I think it's the networking. I think I work with, I have, other individuals that own, early intervention clinics. And I'm like, hey, this kid's not super behavioral. Do you have an opening? I love that they call me. Hey, we've got a kid that's super behavioral. Can you start with him? And then we can transfer him back. I love the collaboration and the networking that I have been able to, to get, because that's been one of the things that I started very, very early on. Working with the LITAs, with the county, working with the state. I've been working with district attorney's office to make sure, and also with like the senator's office, because we've got some individuals that need state supported living center. And in the state of Texas, those are almost impossible to get. And so it's learning, doing hearings, whenever I'm asked to, for TEA even, and working with the school districts. And so I think more recently, I've been able to, as an owner, do more advocating, which is really awesome. To help other people, to get these other opportunities for their individuals, for their kids or their adults, because it's tough. And There's not, there's not anybody that just says, oh, you can do this, 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 and this. Like, you really have to go out and seek and find it and ask questions. And so I've really enjoyed doing those types of things. And then, of course, the accreditations, the residential was a huge thing. It took years to get up and going, and the state out here, and to get licensed. And so I feel like those have been just kind of the most, it's been a crazy ride, but it's been fun. And we're excited to expand those programs.
Hmm. And yeah, I think that's great, having those successes, especially in such big areas of need that we just don't have that much of around here. So, um, and one other thing, because we talked about your supervision and, with BCBA candidates and all of that, and, your RBTs, that's a big part of it too. As you're growing and so much emphasis is really placed on kind of the values of your company and everything like that. How does the RBTs fit in with that, as far as like keeping them on and keeping them trained and all of that? Because, when you were talking about that being a big issue, having to, compete with those other companies, and having worked myself at some of those other companies and seen the
Mhm.
RBTs there, it's definitely a big difference, but I know that they can be tempting with the things that they offer. So how does the RBTs kind of fit into um the supervision and the growth of your company and everything like that?
I mean, a lot of it is just, yes, there's an RBT, but at the end of the day, still learning. Like, they love to learn. They love to be part of something. They love to be able to put input in on the programming, or, be part of that team that is collaborative. And it's not just the BCBA saying, oh, here, you're going to go do this. We're not the ones with the client all day. So there's a lot of input that's very valuable. And so here we have a structure to where once you've got your RBT, say you're, kicking butt on the floor and you're a leader and you meet these criteria, we have lead positions. Those lead positions come with raises. We have had lead RBTs that have been here 4 years that now they're the residential manager. You don't have to have a cert for that. And so we have residential managers, we have team leads, we have seniors, we have all of these other levels. A lot of my RBTs have gone into like our data specialists. We have data specialists that just go through binders all day, every day, to make sure that it's accurate. We also have, billing support, operations support. I mean, honestly, I've had people come to me and they're like, I've been here for 4 years. I really don't want to be indirect. And we have kind of just come up with different positions to help support, either it's back end or front end or whatever. Which again, it's a bunch of non-billable, but it helps. And I think it helps with the morale, knowing that you have extra layers of people. It's not just BCBA and RBT. There's other layers. Whenever we're staffed, you can pull those leaders out and ask them, hey, can you go pull the data from this date to this date? I've got to update an ITP. They love doing that. And so it's just, there's different levels. At some point, yes, you're gonna, without a certification, you're kind of gonna level out. Some people are okay with that as long as they're still being paid. We have bonuses, we have a retention bonus structure. We have a lot of parties. We have, stuff, catering events and stuff like that, and lunches. And then we are, insurance and all of that. We've been able to kind of, we've restructured some of those things, which has really helped our retention. But, I think it's a lot of what, from what I am told, a lot of it is just our environment. And that's what keeps people around. It's the fact that their owner's still in the hallways with them if something
Yeah.
goes down. Like, I don't sit from somewhere else and ask everybody to do all of these things. I'm in this building every single day, and so are the directors. They're on the floor. Their BCBAs are on the floor. They're not even allowed to come to their desk until after 3 p.m. every day. So like, there's just some things like that. Like, I want them to feel supported and to have purpose and feel like they have purpose, and they do. So they are part of the process.
That's so amazing that you've been able to set up a system like that within your team. Are you struggling with staff turnover at your company? Be sure to check out our masterclass, Improving ABA Staff Retention, where we will talk about reducing burnout and increasing job satisfaction within your ABA team. You do not have to only be a clinical director or owner to benefit from this masterclass. This is for any BCBA that works with or manages a team of technicians. In this masterclass, we will cover 6 modules. Each module will come with worksheets to help you implement the strategies that we've discussed and actionable steps that you can implement today. This is for 4.5 CEU'S, which are Supervision CEU'S, that you can get for completing this masterclass. High-tech turnover does not need to be a certainty in our field, and there is a lot that we can do using ABA with our team to change that. So be sure to head over to abcbehaviortx.com and check out this masterclass, Improving ABA Staff Retention. I think there's so many things that you guys are doing that people should really strive to emulate as well in their own supervision practice or even in their own companies. And I mean, a lot of us, myself included, started with a really strong BCBA, started with that really good, strong foundational of our education, our supervision. And then as you get out there, you start seeing not as much companies doing those same things. So I think that's great that you guys are really sticking with it and just doing the right things for the right reasons.
Right.
I'm really excited that you were able to talk to me today about all of those different things. And I'm excited to see what you guys keep doing and and how you grow and what new projects you guys have going on. So
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for being on today. And yeah, hopefully I'll have you back again when going over another topic. I think going over that residential program and adults and everything like that, that's another really big interest area of kind of moving in that direction. So
Absolutely.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And I'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview with Dr. Amanda Coffey from the Behavior Network. If you're interested in learning more about the amazing things the Behavior Network is doing, be sure to check out their website, behaviornetwork.net, and follow them on Facebook. I know I will certainly be following what inspiring projects they have coming up next. Before we go, I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the BHCOE Training Site Accreditation. This is available to organizations or universities that offer training for BCBA or BCABA supervisees and aims to establish a set of standards of excellence for supervision in our field. On their site, you can download the Training Site Accreditation Self-Evaluation Checklist, which is an 83-item self-assessment to see if you would be eligible to qualify as a designated BHCOE accredited training site. But even if you're not interested in this accreditation, the checklist can be a really helpful tool in evaluating your current supervision processes. The checklist goes over 14 domains related to excellent supervision, including ethics, integrity, and professionalism, diversity, equality, and inclusion, general requirements and liability, training, hiring, and retention, patient intake, service delivery, clinical documentation, collaboration and coordination of care, health, safety, and emergency preparedness, media communication and representation, security, privacy, and compliance, supervisor qualifications and competence, trainee experience documentation, and trainee competence and breadth of experience. Providing high quality and effective supervision, I think, is one of the most important aspects of our field, as it is going to guide the entire future direction of our field. If future BCBAs lack the scientific analytical skills to provide individualized and socially significant therapy in favor of following sets of protocols without the clinical decision-making skills needed to see real progress and change, we will find our field moving back into the days of behavior modification. If you want to learn more about supervision, remember, this month we are covering everything supervision. So if you're not a member of the Behavior Crew, head on over to abcbehaviortx.com, click on Join the Crew, and join right now. Even free members get some resources and CEU'S each month. Next week, we will be having an in-depth talk about the BCBA handbook, focusing on the supervision sections. Then, later this month, we will discuss assessing supervisees' competencies, advocating for effective supervision, and we will have a live webinar on July 18th to cover the ethics of supervision. And remember, if you need any supervision resources, check out the products section of abcbehaviortx.com. We have the Behavior Analyst Supervision Curriculum, our tracking Excel sheets, documentation packages, masterclass CEU courses on providing exceptional supervision, and more. Once again, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.